Another amazing guest. This is the Work Your Brand show. I've been doing this, I don't even know, almost 2 years. First Friday of every month, I bring on an amazing guest who I think is building their brand really successfully, who is contributing to society and has something for us to learn. And Martin is definitely one of those people. LinkedIn Top Voice twice. He is really an inspiration. I don't actually want to tell his story because I want him to give you background on who he is, because it's more compelling coming from him. So without further ado, if you're listening in, please say hello. Let us know where you're listening in from. We love seeing you and saying hello. We'll write in the comments and follow up. So get those questions in. Martin, thank you for joining me today. I so appreciate having you here. Let's first start with you and your incredible journey to who you've become today.
So, hey, I'm Martin Stark in Sydney, Australia, and I always give an acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where I currently am, the Gamaragal people, pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander, First Nations people. So, I'm Martin Stark. My pronouns are he, him. I'm calling myself the Courage Champion. That's what I'm known for. And 6 months ago, I delivered the world's first boxing competition for the LGBTQIA plus community and allies. So I've spent a lot of time in the last 4 years fighting homophobia and racism in sport, and delivered the world first a few months ago. So it's been an eventful few years for me.
Wow. Well, that's only a piece of the story, because Martin, you have to tell me, you were doing IT sourcing. You were kind of more in the technology space and working at a company, right? For several years.
Yeah, so I left university in 1997, and I worked for a company called British Telecom, which is the UK equivalent of AT&T. And then I moved out to Australia with them. So I moved over to Australia just before the Sydney Olympics, and then moved into IT sourcing, which is negotiating with technology companies for hardware, software, services. So all the people offering sales advice, I was the person leading the buying process and managing those relationships. And that's where I spent the bulk of my career. On the side, I've dealt with many health challenges. In 2006, I had gallstone block in my liver, ended up going into two intensive comas, so two induced comas, intensive care. I had septic shock, pancreatitis, had a tracheotomy, was diagnosed with the rare autoimmune condition Addison's disease in 2006. My body doesn't produce cortisol, and cortisol is your body's stress-producing hormone. In the event of like a cold or flu, your cortisol levels increase, mine don't. And I've faced death multiple times, numerous hospital admissions with surgeries, and 70 plus hospital admissions over the last 17 years. So it's been a battle with health, but trying to live life to the full as well.
Okay, so wait a minute. What are you able, is the cortisol mended now, that autoimmune, or is that still?
So I take replacement hydrocortisone for life. So I
Wow.
use the analogy of somebody saying might have type 1 diabetes, which I believe is an autoimmune condition, and they may take replacement insulin. I have to take replacement hydrocortisone for life. So in the event of I had COVID a couple of years ago, I had to make sure I had additional hydrocortisone because my body was fighting that infection without the body's natural immune system giving you cortisol. So I have to take increased steroids in the event I get sick. And
Got
if I
it.
get very sick, it's straight to hospital.
Wow. And where in the midst of, working for a company did the boxing piece come into this while you're in the hospital dozens of times?
So the boxing started at the end. Well, it began in 2018 because at the end of 2017, I almost died from Addison's disease. So I'm rushed straight to Royal North Shore, which is a top hospital here in Sydney, straight into the intensive care section of emergency. And so they're fighting to save my life. And that whole experience brought back the memories of being in comas. So to help as a way of combating PTSD, I underwent self-defense training and boxing training, and I immediately fell in love with the sport. So it was very much something I never ever thought I would be doing, but as a way to kind of deal with the memories of the dreams I had in my comas that I'd relayed back to almost dying again. That was just one way of actually dealing with that process.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So, can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know something you talk about a lot is courage and finding that courage within and sort of facing those fears. Where is boxing in that physical kind of sport, coming in for you and supporting?
So I describe courage as taking ownership of fear and venturing forward with confidence and resilience. And I use a strategy which I call the courage bank. There have been times where we've been brave and used those emotions and those feelings when facing a challenge. So I was facing death another time. I'm in the intensive care section of emergency. The doctors are struggling to save my life. So that whole experience of being in comas is brought back. So there's a way to actually try and counteract the PTSD is just trying to do something different, to focus on myself. And I found a new passion and a new love. And that's what boxing brought for me. The first time I did shadow boxing, which is really kind of you're boxing against yourself, mimicking being in a sparring round, it felt like I was dealing with my own truths, that I mattered more than I was giving myself credit for. So sometimes we don't always give ourselves credit, but facing those demons with courage and owning that fear means you can venture forward to that next level challenge.
Okay. Most people don't face that fear, Martin. Most people will go through the experiences that you did and just kind of give up, right? So, what do you say, right, when people are feeling that the insecurities and they're just feeling like, wow, what I can't keep going, how do you do that?
Well, I see that there are like four main responses to fear. There's that fight or flight. People either jump out the way or they want to stand firm.
Yeah.
But there's also freeze, that reaction there, or fawn, where we roll it in a ball. So that is your own process. What I'm saying is, if you can start to own the fear, is to understand why you're feeling that way, and take incremental steps. For me, I had a terrible fear of snake. I went to a wildlife place in Sydney, and I held a python. I'm the type of person I will just try and conquer that fear. But for other people, it may be different steps you can take. But relay times in your brain when you've been courageous. For example, you learn to drive, your first lesson versus your fifth lesson. What have you learned? It was new in your first lesson. You must have overcome some kind of anxiety or fear. Most people will be passionate about learning to drive, but there's something between the first and the fifth lesson, and that's experience, that's courage, that's bravery. So if you can kind of tap into that and use that as a way to move you forward in a challenge, that really just sets you up for greater success than just reacting all of the time. You can get through. You can get through with panic. You can do that, but it's not effective.
No, and I feel like we're in a society where, that fight, we're constantly in the fight or flight kind of mode, right? Our cell phone, social media, news, everything is sort of creating that adrenaline inside of us that is really exhausting.
Yeah.
So it's like we're actually, because I've experienced adrenal fatigue, and now I'm pregnant, which is like a whole different other level, and it's I think we're particularly in a hard time because of all of the technology. It's like we're kind of forgetting those sensory pieces that you're talking about, that because we're at the computer all day.
So there are two defense techniques in boxing which I use in life. So the first is the step away, the walking away. You don't have to get involved in something if there's trolling, there's somebody being angry or whatever, or consuming. You can walk away. You can take ownership of that. And the second is blocking. I block people if there's a troll on social media. I block them. But you can block things out in life. You can block time for yourself. you can maybe not spend as much time in that activity, which is draining your attention. You might still have to do certain things, but you can block how you react to it, and you can walk away from things. There are some relationships you may find, that person is so draining, I don't want to spend time with them anymore. You don't have to, and find a crowd that really supports you and gets you, and you can just make such a great contribution to.
Totally. And that is the courageous thing to do. It's so courageous to put that boundary up, right?
Yeah.
To have that awareness and say, wow, this is really making me feel like shit.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't
exactly.
like this. And these people don't make me feel good. This job doesn't make me feel good, whatever. And I'm actually going to step away. Like, that is the most courageous thing that we can do for ourselves. But I don't think people really recognize that.
I'm going to use the analogy of pronouns. I display my pronouns. My pronouns are he, him. And some people get so upset over somebody saying this is who they are. Now, when I was at school, there was a teacher. She got married. I remember as kids, she was Miss something, and on the Monday it was Mrs. And we learned very quickly just to use Mrs. rather than Miss, to just be respectful to another person. There's all of this furore over a pronoun. Well, if somebody just says, you know what, I go by this, call me they, them, or she, her, he, him. If you can't just respect that other person, then that's more on you. If it upsets you, kind of move on, but just be respectful. Just be that kind person. If your teacher changed their name over a weekend because they got married or something else, you would respect that teacher. You would respect a friend who changed their name when they get married. You would do that.
Totally.
So just do the same in life. Respect others. You don't have to accept everything, but respect.
Oh, I love that you said that. And Josh and I talk about that so much, respect. We say that with the children, above all else, respect for yourself and respect for others. And, we've kind of lost sense of that a bit. It's like we live in this world where it's like, I'm telling people what to do. Like my view, my belief is more powerful. And it's like, we're all human. I don't know. I love that.
I spent too much of my time being a perfectionist and worrying and stressing too much, and I can't get that time back. I don't remember the things that I was stressed about. I remember the experience. So you think about times you've been, all of this,
Yeah.
But 6 months later, what were you stressed about? Did that change the world for you, or was it okay? It was probably okay, but you were stressing too much.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I'm clapping. I'm snapping because that's like, I do that. I do tell myself that. I'm like, is this going to matter in 6 months? Is this going to matter in 5 years? A lot of different coaches say that. I was at Marie Forleo. She had that in her book. And I think it is, especially when you're an entrepreneur, business owner, it's so easy to stress about everything because it's your livelihood, and so I think that's really powerful.
I was going to say, when I started out on LinkedIn, I'd left a job and I was taking a bit of a sabbatical, and I just took a huge risk, but I really had nothing to lose, and I started sharing my voice. And I just met some amazing people like yourself and Josh, who have become friends over time because we've connected through sharing our voice and having the courage to do that. And those opportunities came my way that I never thought were possible for me just by having the courage to share.
I'm so glad that you said that, because that's exactly what we believe too. It takes, if we have the courage to share our voice and to really own that we're amazing. Each of us is amazing and has something different and great to say, that it can be so rewarding inside here, first and foremost. There's nothing better than being able to just share your voice authentically.
It's just so empowering. When I think about LGBTQ plus rights here in Australia, we had a marriage equality vote in 2017. And it was passed because allies stood up and voted yes. You can have so many supporters out there. I think about the courage of Muhammad Ali, what he achieved outside of the ring, as well as inside of the ring, and the courage of so many people. We enjoy a better society today because Some people had the courage to stand up and say, this is what I believe. And they had such a powerful vision. They invited other people to join them. And that's the thing. If you have an opportunity to do something and be part of something bigger, make the most of it. Because if you don't, others will. And one day your dream might become a regret, not a reality.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about you taking your dreams and making it more of a reality, right? Like who would have figured you could be a LinkedIn top voice, right? If you would have looked back when you were in the coma and you creating a whole new boxing championship, like all these things are amazing. What has been your process, your journey in sharing your voice? What gives you the courage every day to get on here, be vulnerable and share? And what has been some of the results that you're seeing?
So, I think the first thing was taking ownership of the fear. I remember the stat, it was like 1% of users when I was starting out on LinkedIn were posting content regularly. So I decided to be part of that 1%.
Right.
And that was an opportunity available to every single person who had a mobile phone and a LinkedIn account to have the same thing. If you had the phone that I had, or you had a phone where you could upload a video, upload a photo, or make a text post, you had exactly the same opportunity that I had. And that's what I did. And I just started out with a very blurred message. It was all over the place, but people were seeing something in me. So then I had a very simple and clear message around courage, around inclusion. Keynote speaking opportunities came about because of that. I'd seen what had been achieved in other sports for the LGBTQ plus community. I decided I want to make a difference in the sport I love of boxing. Garnered so much support on LinkedIn from people, and I was able to be interviewed by CNN in 2021. I was interviewed by BBC Sport, and one of my claims to fame is for about 2 hours on the BBC Sports boxing page, there were 3 stories of boxing headlining. The first one was about Muhammad Ali. The second was me. And underneath me, there was a story about Anthony Joshua. So he was at the time the world heavyweight champion, the greatest boxer in the world, and Martin Stark. So I have a screenshot of that. But at that one moment, I was there, and I will never forget that. But if you'd asked me 2 years prior, would I be on the BBC Sports website up there with Muhammad Ali and Anthony Joshua? And I said, you're joking. But it was something I never thought of became a reality. And that's the key to the success, the courage and the consistency.
So just for people listening, right? Because you know how LinkedIn top voice twice. We know that the way to become a LinkedIn top voice is really up to LinkedIn, not the community top voice badges, which are new, but being a top voice. Obviously you've been posting very consistently, being super authentic, but what other things, especially if you're getting on TV, and I know you have a LinkedIn course coming out, so maybe you could talk a little bit about those pieces of your strategy and this course that you're creating that's really led to your success.
So I'm creating a course, and I'm going to take it along the lines of make an impact and how to achieve business success on LinkedIn. And for me, it just comes back to who you are and who you want to connect with and what you want to be known for. I talk about leading with value, having what I call a connect and set approach. You connect with somebody first of all before you try and sell them something. But before somebody tries to sell you something, if they lead with value, if they educate, they action a rapport. If we start with that process and then you communicate consistently, you reach out to people, you build up, you become known for something. And there's a process, there's a formula I call MC-RON, which is your message and your content equals your relationships, your opportunities, and your network. Now, the other thing that I'm writing in the course is my procurement background, or the buying of technology I've bought over the years for companies.
Yeah.
The customer roadmap is awareness, consideration, decision, retention, and advocacy. You need to be aware of something before you consider. And with consider, I also talk about being considerate. Yesterday, I received a connection request, and then straight it was a pitch. I deleted that message and I removed the connection request because that person had no intention of doing anything apart from trying to sell me something. Then you
Right.
decide through seeing people's message and content, how they're offering value to others, the meaning of the relationship. And that's when somebody will retain you as a customer and they will advocate for you. So that's really what the course is about. And then how to get your message out there and influence decision makers through various different ways. But if you just start with your message and your content, that opens up the relationships, the opportunities, and your network.
We love that. I mean, could not agree more here at Standout Authority. There we talk about that as well with the marketing funnel, and we know that over 90% of the buying journey and that buying process is complete before they ever reach out and want to talk to you. And so when people are constantly spamming us, it is so stupid. It's so stupid because nobody likes it and it doesn't work. And Josh always says this. He's like, is it really worth sending 1,000 message for that one person? You just pissed off 1,000 people and one person converted. So we're with you.
You'll never know who you are reaching. 95% of your followers will not comment or react to your posts, but they will be seeing what you're posting, what you're commenting, what messages. It's an example. If you're having a culture war debate with somebody on LinkedIn, and I'm seeing, I'll give you an example. Somebody connected out with me a few years ago, and then they commented about the LGBTQ plus community in a negative way. I'm like, well, I see what you really stand for.
Yeah.
Versus others you've seen who've been just like so consistent. Yes, we support you. And those are the relationships that matter. Those are the relationships that are so meaningful.
Oh, yes. I've had a few of those moments myself, Martin.
Yeah.
And I'm always grateful, actually, when somebody says something really shitty, because I'm like, I really hope all your people and everybody sees that, like, we're not aligned, right? Because I want my content to repel the people that are not my tribe and attract those that are. So, and at the same time, Martin, I think you're bringing up something so important with our personal brand and what we're building, and especially on a platform like LinkedIn, where commenting and liking is actually enhances your visibility, right? And gets you in the algorithm, unlike some other platforms. You really do have to be mindful of whose information you're liking, who you're commenting on, and is it really representing the brand and message and the relationships that you want to create. And I have countless stories around this, around just people really not thinking about their brand, or on the contrary, really being smart and strategic around the people you're engaging with, which is something we talk a lot about here at Standout, to actually engage with those influencers and engage with those people you do want to be seen by. And you could see incredible opportunities, like maybe being on the BBC or CNN. I mean, you just don't know. Martin, I think all the time people from like years back at a job will say, man, Rachel, you're killing it. I'm seeing you do this. And I'm like, hi, good to hear from you. Like they know my life. I haven't talked to the person for 5 years. Right? But they're watching.
They're watching. I'm going to share 2 stats with you. There are 12 million people at the moment who've enabled creator mode. There are over 60 million decision makers. So you think about it. How many of those decision makers have enabled creator mode? But how many of those decision makers are seeing what you're doing and may reach out to you, or when you reach out to them, they've seen what you do and have made such a good impression of you. And I tell you now, there's more businesses are using social media because we're in the content creator economy. They're thinking of decision makers. Why do you think all of the big consulting firms are making such a huge personal brand of the partners, and they're sharing all the company's knowledge? Because they know that's how we seek out is who's saying this and the reason why.
Yeah.
And that's how you influence.
Oh, yeah.
In such a smart way, very strategic, but very smart way.
Oh, we're super aligned, Martin. Super aligned, which is amazing. I think that brings collaboration opportunities for us in the
Definitely.
future, for
I think
sure.
so. I think so.
Very complimentary, and there's nothing better. I mean, Mark and I don't know each other, right? We never met in person, Josh, but through LinkedIn and just being good people and posting, it's like you feel like you know somebody, right? And he's taking his time to be a guest for me today. And that's what's amazing. It's just so cool, I think, about social media and LinkedIn in of itself. Okay, so Martin, what we're gonna wrap up. I want you to just one thing for the guests, for the people, the audience watching today, just to walk away from as they think about having that courage within and sharing their voice. What would your one kind of piece of advice or tip be?
I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you two questions.
Oh no,
One is,
he's coming back with me.
yeah, okay. For the audience.
Okay.
When has your courage made an impact, made a difference to somebody? And the second question is, when will you next be courageous and make an impact? And it comes back to what you've done in the past has been fantastic. It's made a difference. Do that again and again and again. So that way you make courage a habit.
Pretty good. I like it. I like it. Okay, amazing. So follow you. Obviously, you have the course coming out. Is there any other things that we want people to tell people to do with you, Martin?
Just go on my website. I'm doing a monthly blog. I've started a YouTube channel. If you just go to martinstark.co, you can see my website. So yeah, but keep following me and messaging. I'll be communicating the course. It's probably about a month or so away, but yeah, once it's ready to go, I'll be chatting it from the rooftops.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, for sharing your courage with me today. Thanks so much for everybody that's been watching and hanging with us. Do follow up with questions, follow Martin, and really cannot wait to see you guys back next month to our family. Another great guest. Have a wonderful rest of your week, of your month, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers. Thanks, everybody.